Today, we break down the core dynamics shaping this pivotal summit, the trade wars, a new phase, the technological standoff over AI and semiconductors, and the deep undercurrents of regional security. Joining us from Hong Kong, Mr. Binny Kwok, international politics expert, and from Washington, Mr. Justin Thomas Russell, Global Foreign Policy Center Executive Director. And together, they will help us understand what's truly at stake as Trump and Xi navigate one of the world's most consequential relations. Mr. Kwok, how does China view the one-year trade truce brokered at the summit? Is it a step towards cooperation or merely a pause in confrontation?
Hello, thank you. I would say it is very important for China for the pause in the confrontation is the one-year pause, because the Chinese export really hurts because of the U.S. tariffs. So I would say this one-year pause for giving some concessions to the United States, it is important for the Beijing to, as we say, buy time for the Chinese enterprises, or even for Beijing to build China lead a supply chain, or to build a supply chain that is less dependent on the importing from the U.S. So I would say it is a very important time for Beijing to use the one-year pause to try to figure out what China, the coming future for the China's export policy, for the trade policy, for the economic policy, that could be more independent or less dependent on the U.S. supply chain.
Right. Mr. Russell, what are the strategic calculations behind Trump's apparent shift towards a tactical truce?
Well, good evening, Mona. I think we're still evaluating what the long term of this is going to be. It's a one-year deal. There's a definite Band-Aid approach to this, but it does not fix the issue, the larger issues. And quite frankly, Donald Trump is saying that this deal was a 12 out of 10. I don't see that. What we see is Xi Jinping walked in with kind of a dominant position right now. China has control of about 90% of the raw earth materials. He literally came out of this not having to make many concessions, whereas Donald Trump has to make concessions regarding the import of Chinese products, reducing tariffs. The big winner in this is President Xi. And I think it might have cooled off the tensions a little bit, but any cooling off of tensions was just offset by other announcements that Donald Trump made.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Kwok, what are the strategic reasons behind China's agreeing to suspend export restrictions on the rare earth minerals?
Of course, it is I would say it is the number one trump card for China to use the rare earth restrictions against the United States. But at the same time, the China export suffers because of because of the U.S. tariffs. So that's why when if the China really wants to revitalize the Chinese exports for the lesser U.S. tariffs, then of course China needs to give some concessions. Of course, it is for to try to suspend the rare earth restrictions. But of course, I would say the rare earth export ban, the time is not on China, because you're seeing United States is already forming the rare earth production alliance with the Australia, Japan, Malaysia, and also Pakistan. So Pakistan is a very important factor for the latest China rare earth export ban, because the Pakistan is trying to use some of the China's technology for extracting the rare earth and then sell the rare earth to the United States. So many of the analysts, including me, would think it is the whole reason why China would like to try to ban the export of the rare earth. But of course, China is not going to name Pakistan because Pakistan is one of the very important ally for China. But implicitly, China is already banning the export of the technology for extracting the rare earth. So that's why I would say in the long term, the rare earth card cannot be used as much as usual because in the long term, United States and its allies would build up their technology that could be less pollute, more environmental friendly, and then the cost would be lower and lower, and then the advantage for China would be not as good as we can see today.
So you're exporting the minerals, not the know-how. Mr. Russell, how sustainable is the current trade truce given unresolved issues like technology export controls and regional security conflicts?
That's a good question. I think what we're seeing right now is that it's still very fragile. You know, when we talk about the rare earth issues, you know, again, I know I've talked about this before, but again, this latest deal out of Busan just proves the fact that we are in a situation, we are in a economic Cold War. We are in a mutually assured economic destruction situation with China. China can't afford not to have us buy the exports that they provide to our country, and our economy can't afford not to have access to that. So we go into mutually assured economic destruction that has ripple effects around the globe. What the fragility of this is that Donald Trump is looking for short-term wins. He's got to get on Air Force One, and he has to be able to say, look, I got a 12 out of 10 deal. This is awesome. I am the greatest deal maker. What we're seeing in Xi is playing the long game. This trade agreement offsets some tensions. It doesn't put a hindrance on any sort of possible future economic growth short term. But what this does allow is Xi to kind of look long term as to keeping BRICS moving forward as an economic alternative. The more BRICS gains prevalence in the global economy, that means less dominance and less influence economically for the U.S. and Western allies. So this is a very, very fragile agreement. I think it's something that makes it a little bit warmer, but long term, make no mistake about it, there is definitely a mutual threat between the two superpowers economically that they're going to have to address.
Well, you don't think that Xi would suspend his BRICS being part of the BRICS, Mr. Ross?
No, it doesn't make sense for him. It doesn't make sense for China. It doesn't make sense for India.
What doesn't make sense, Mr. Russell? That they are diversifying the economic blocks that they are within? What doesn't make sense?
It doesn't make sense for them to kind of hold back on making BRICS an economic superpower. Look, if I'm Xi, I'll make whatever short-term deal. It's a one-year deal. I'll make whatever short-term deal I have to do to be able to kind of appease the situation and make it look like I'm playing nicely in the sandbox. But if I'm Xi, I'm also looking at the opportunity to sit there and create this economic alliance in BRICS with some major economic powers. India and South Africa are two. And I build up the economic influence that they have. So basically what happens is I get a short-term win, so it lessens the heat. But if I'm Xi, I don't have to appease Donald Trump in the U.S. I've got BRICS. I can make my own superpower even more dominant, and that's the long-term game, and that's different from the U.S. short-term approach.
But we're speaking about two superpowers. We're speaking about the biggest two economic powers here. We'll get back to you, Mr.
Yeah.
Russell. Let me go to Mr. Kwok. And Mr. Kwok, how does
Yes.
President Xi Jinping's approach to the summit reflect China's desire for equal status on the global stage?
Xi Jinping always want to build its image and also build Chinese image as equal as United States around for the global affairs. So since Xi came into office in 2012, in the late 2012, he's proposing to build new great power relations. That is the so-called what we are saying the Chin America just passed. That is coined by the very famous British historian Niall Ferguson. So when time goes on, so we are seeing the Chinese economy is getting grows and grows. And when the U.S. launched the tariffs, so-called the trade war against China, and then China the revenge, and then the global economy in many all around the world suffers because of the two superpowers fighting with each other, at least in the economic terms. So that's why by these fighting, by these battles, no countries dare to look down the China. So I would say it is one of the approach for the Xi Jinping to try to build up his image to the round world, the world that is China is the only country who is capable to challenge the global leadership of the United States, and China is the only country who would defend the free trade of the global economy. Unlike Donald Trump's United States, who is always looking for the only American interests, it is not for the global interests. I would say it is the goal for the Xi Jinping would like to develop his image to reflect the unilateralism of Donald Trump.
Right. Mr. Russell, as I said previously, that we're speaking about two superpowers here. We're speaking about the biggest two economies in the whole world. And their relations would really reflect on the global economy. Not only that, but would disrupt many chains and would disrupt industries worldwide. Now, how important is the issue of U.S. tariffs and China's export controls in these negotiations?
Well, they were obviously tantamount to the negotiations. I mean, we need raw earth. China needs to export raw earth so we can make some of the technology that they utilize in some of their electronics, and we need our economy to be able to get inexpensive electronics that they produce. So yeah, I mean, the fact that we're dealing with the two biggest economic superpowers in the world, this was, that's why all eyes are on Busan and what came out of this. And then we also have to look at the fact that, and I bring up, Mona, the other players. It's this alliance that China, as an economic superpower, the key here is making an economic power alternative to the United States. That is what Xi wants. As my fellow guest pointed out, Xi's goal is to be on equal or better playing ground than the U.S. He wants to make China the big economic superpower. So when we see all of these little nuance, I mean, even the fentanyl reduction is a win short term for Trump. You look at the reduction in the trade, the trade tariff points. That is a short term win. But long term, we still have to look at the fact that China is an economic superpower threat to the United States influence, and the United States is going to have to adjust if we want to maintain our position globally as the big, friendly, dominant economic power to play with when you're dealing trade agreements.
just in terms of what, Mr. Russell, and why would you want Xi Jinping not to work with the interests of his country, and why would he submit for the dominance of the U.S.? Let me take it to Mr. Kwok first, and we'll come for that response. Mr. Kwok, how does China perceive South Korea's role as the host in balancing U.S. and Chinese interests?
Current South Korean president is, compared to the previous one, is not that hostile to China. And historically, South Korea, even though you have the American troops in the South Korean territory to try to protect South Korea from the North Korea, compared to Japan, South Korea is more friendly to China, and of course it is an also important ally to the United States. So it is one of the very perfect country for balancing the potential conflicts between China and the United States. But of course, you're seeing not just the South Korea, the real country that to try to get the China and the United States to have to solve the trade issues is the Malaysia. So you're seeing some middle powers just like South Korea, Malaysia, and these two countries is two of the countries that could try to get the two countries together, sit down, and of course, whether these two countries could solve problems in the very long term, I don't think it is possible. But at least South Korea and also Malaysia could to try to build up the image that is they are the countries could be capable to get the two superpowers and sit down, and they have the network and they have the power and they have the influence to do so.
Right. Getting back to you, Mr. Russell, and again, why wouldn't Xi Jinping work for the interests of his country? Why wouldn't any leader work for the good of his country and join blocs and diversify his alliance in order to strengthen the position of his country? And why would you think that Xi or any leader submit to the dominance of the U.S.?
I understand the concept of your question, and I'm not criticizing Xi. Xi has a responsibility as the head of state to help for the best interests of his people and his national economic and his national security interests. I think what Xi is doing is brilliant. I think what Xi is doing is very smart. And
so you want here the U.S. to change, to adjust, in terms of what?
Absolutely. Well, in terms of the fact that we're starting to see right now that Trump's massive, huge tariff frenzy is not going to work long term. It doesn't work now. We're seeing inflation. We're seeing economic ramifications here in the U.S. and globally because of it. What that does is drive everybody that our closest allies. Look at what's happening in the relationship with Canada. And Canada, we just saw Mark Carney announce that he's going to have to look at other alternatives. The reliance on the U.S. is done. Where do they go? Well, they go to China. They go to BRICS. So we're losing ground. Even though Donald Trump has this idea that he is the great deal maker, we're losing ground. And Xi and China and BRICS. And again, the other thing we don't have to look at is we don't have the manufacturing capacity. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the labor force to do and make up the manufacturing deficit that would occur the further we push trading partners like China, India, Vietnam away from us. So we're in a very dangerous game here.
Wouldn't that be reasons that Trump went into such negotiations with the Chinese leader? Just to give him some time
No.
to adjust, to make the right adjustments that you're speaking about?
No, Mona, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree that this had to happen. We had to slow down the deteriorating relationship, both strategic and economically, with Beijing. This meeting had to happen. But the problem is that, you know, Donald Trump's America First ideals are causing a lot more economic and strategic risk for the US. And it's putting Xi Jinping, China, BRICS, and other global players in a better position to be an alternative economic power to just depending on the United States. That's the risk. And this is not a short-term strategy. Again, we have to be real. We have to realize this is a one-year deal. And that year could evaporate and we could be in a worse situation in 1 year. We don't know. That's why I think this is very fragile. And I think that we need to really recalculate our economic position globally before we start, claiming victory in America First policy.
Right. Look, how does Beijing view Trump's demands for tariff reductions as negotiable or as political theater? What do you think?
Of course, the Trump's the tariff policy is political theater. It is just one of the measures for Donald Trump to ask for Beijing to concede, to give something that Donald Trump wants. So once you're seeing when China buys the soybeans, once China to agree to at least verbally agree to cooperate with the United States for the fentanyl export, then Donald Trump to try to reduce some of the tariffs. But of course, I would say just don't look at the numbers, the amount of the tariffs, the reduction of tariff amounts. Just look, and more importantly, to look at what Donald Trump do, what the Donald Trump have the agreements with other countries, just like Vietnam, Japan, and of course, especially Southeast Asia. What United States, what their trade deal after the tariff war. Right. That is, many of the agreements is go against China. For example, you are seeing the transshipment tariffs. You are seeing many strategic agreement to build up another supply chain that is trying to reduce the dependence on China. These are more important than just reducing the percentage of the tariffs. Right. So I would say the high tariff for Donald Trump is just for the means for asking the Beijing to concede. And Beijing, of course, no. So that's why I would say it's just for the theater, political theater, as you have mentioned, as you asked me.
Right. Mr. Benny Kwok and Mr. Justin Thomas Russell, we thank you so much for joining us and for bringing valuable perspectives to this crucial discussion. This summit in Seoul marks a significant step, but many questions remain. Will it forge a new path towards cooperation or simply contain current tensions? Remains to be seen. This brings us to the end of today's episode. For In Depth, many thanks for joining and stay tuned for more updates on Qnews.